Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Asare Christian. I am excited to be here to talk to you about the relaxation response. So I know specifically for this conference, we are focusing on wellness. And the idea or the goal is to give you specific strategies backed by evidence and backed by science to really help you with managing any other symptoms and complications that will come with multiple sclerosis. So I know many of you have signed up for specific courses in mindfulness, in meditation, in yoga, in Pilates. All of those things are an attempt to elicit this concept called the relaxation response. And this presentation is going to walk you through the science behind why meditation works, why prayer works, why yoga works, why Tai Chi and all of those different mind-body medicines work in getting into a state of well-being, as well as changing multiple physiological states that are beneficial for us. Okay, so the relaxation response is part of what we consider mind-body medicine. So a lot of individuals may have been exposed to this concept. So mind-body medicine is an evidence-based approach to health and healing that focuses on interactions between the mind, body, and behavior. And part of this mind-body behavior interaction is where the relaxation response fit in. And the goal of this mind-body medicine is to facilitate practices that unite the body with the mind with the overall goal of promoting health and well-being. All right. So in general, when we talk about mind-body medicine, we can break this into three specific areas. So this includes meditation. Within this concept, within this place, we have mindfulness meditation, love and kindness meditation. There's multiple meditation practices that are out there. These are all considered mind-body medicine. There is a relaxation practice. And specific to this presentation, this is what I'm going to be talking a lot more about, the science behind it and how it works. This includes specifically breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, guided imagery, and then we also have meditative movement practices. So some element of focusing on specific activities, combining that with breathing, all of that are what we consider mind-body medicine. And all of these practices here are able to elicit the relaxation response. And we will look at specifically what is happening within our body when we activate this system. So before we go further, let's try to define what the relaxation response is. And this was something that was discovered by a physician from Harvard Medical School. So in the 1970s, Dr. Benson was trying to understand all this benefit that individuals who have had meditation practices will have. People were able to calm themselves down. They were able to control pain. And he was able to discover that within our physiology, this relaxation response occurs when we activate our parasympathetic system. So when you look at our central nervous system, we have this part called the autonomic nervous system. So this consists of your parasympathetic and sympathetic system. So maybe you may be familiar with those words, but basically what is happening when we do meditation, when we do yoga, when we do mindfulness, we are actually activating our parasympathetic system and decreasing activation of the sympathetic system. So a simple way to understand this concept of relaxation response, very simply putting it, simplifying things, is that relaxation response is parasympathetic dominance within your autonomic nervous system. And as we go through this presentation, I will clarify some of these things so it makes sense to you. All right. So we know that the mind-body practices has been used over millennia in multiple places around the world. And the relaxation response was something or some attempt from a scientific standpoint to really understand what is going on with all of these practices, which has been used to prevent and even treat disease. And what happens with the relaxation response activation is that you have decreased oxygen consumption. So that's a good thing for your physiology. You have increased exhaled nitric oxide. So you want to get rid of those inflammatory gases. And then you have a reduced physiological distress or a reduced physiological stress response. There is a counterpart to the relaxation response. So we have the relaxation response, and then we also have the stress response. So we'll talk about the stress response and what happened with stress response, and the importance for us to really work on activating our relaxation response to counteract the effect of the stress response. So as I talked about, the relaxation response is characterized by dominance of the parasympathetic system. So your parasympathetic system is your rest and digest system. So you have these two systems. One is to rest and digest, which has specific physiological benefit. And then you also have your sympathetic system, which is responsible for your fight, flight, or freeze response. And one is not necessarily bad. I think what we are looking for is balance within those systems. There is times that we need our stress response to be activated so we can run away from a specific threat. And there's also times that we need to activate our parasympathetic system so we can rest and digest. But in our current culture, as well as environment of pandemic, there's a lot of stress, perceived stress, and your body doesn't really know the distinction between something that is stressful to the point of it's going to kill you, as well as something that is benign stress, just from the fact that somebody is calling you multiple times on the phone, or you did not get the job you were looking for. All of those specific stimuli or exposure can trigger your stress response, and all of that for a prolonged time may cause a problem for us. So now let's look at this specifically in a little bit detailed, what is going on when we talk about the stress response and the relaxation response in the context of your autonomic nervous system. So this looks a little busy, but I'm going to really try to simplify this whole process to give you a sense of pathophysiologically or physiologically what is going on within your brain when you have a stressful event. So for example, we have a pandemic going on. This will be perceived as a stressful event. What happened is that within your brain, within your HPA axis, there is activation of specific hormones and neurotransmitters that leads to activation of your adrenal glands. When that is activated, on one side, you have production of neuroepinephrine, and this is a neurotransmitter which is responsible for increasing your blood pressure, your heart rate, your respiratory rate. It also leads to blood flow to your skeletal muscles. And why this is happening is because when you have a stress response, your body is shunting all your blood into your periphery, your legs, your arms. So either you can fight or you can run away. And that's necessary, for example, if a tiger is trying to chase you or something else like that. But in that process, you also have decreased lymphocyte activity. So your lymphocytes are responsible for your immune system. So when you are trying to run away from a stress, you don't want to activate your immune system because if you activate your immune system and you get eaten by the tiger, you will not be around to even have an immune system. So it's just designed in a way to really protect us. On the other side, you also produce cortisol with the stress response. And this can lead to inflammatory cytokines, which are all not good processes for our body for long-term exposure. On the other side, we're looking at the relaxation response. And again, it's the same system. It's basically the negative of that response. So in this context, we have no activation or deactivation of neuroepinephrine, and this can decrease your blood pressure. This can decrease your heart rate, respiratory rate, which are all things that we can see when individuals do meditation or any type of mindfulness or relaxation specific techniques. And this leads to activation of your immune system. So when you're actually resting, this is a place you want to be. So for example, we have a pandemic going on. Which side do you want to be? I think as clearly demonstrated here, you want to be on the relaxation response side, where you can activate the right T cells that can fight for you, as well as limit inflammatory cytokine. So this is just a little illustration of what's going on within your stress response, as well as your relaxation response. Okay, so there is some distinction between mindfulness and relaxation practices. So mindfulness specifically teaches acceptance of present moment events, internal events, without judgment. So the idea is, if you're even having pain, if something is not going well, to become aware of that specific internal event without judgment. Relaxation practices teaches you strategies to change those internal events. So if something is really bothering you, one approach is to just sit there with mindfulness, to look at it without any judgment, which won't cause any acute problems for you. But if that's something that is still bothering you, you can use relaxation practices. You can breathe. You can do some yoga and some other things in that space that can help with changing that internal state of being. All right. So it is important to really understand what we use mindfulness for when we're talking about the clinical setting, when we're talking about patients. And we know that mindfulness, meditation, all of those things have multiple benefit that has been documented. So we have a lot of research behind all of this things since 1970, when this was first discovered. So we know that this can boost your immune system. It can help manage chronic pain. So I know there's a lot of individuals here who have pain. And in one of my talks, I talked about pain, cognition, and your brain. And the basis for why you can use your cognition to control your pain is all based on this relaxation response. So you can reduce stress, you can increase empathy and other positive emotions. Okay, so the goal of mindfulness practices, I like this, is to build awareness and acceptance skills in order to tolerate discomfort, gain distance from unhelpful thoughts, and ultimately make adaptive behavior choices to reduce suffering and pursue value goals, even while uncomfortable emotions or physical sensation may be present. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in this specific statement, and really lays out what the benefits are when we practice mindfulness. So a lot of times we can't change the situation. We can't change the fact that we have MS and we can't walk, or we can't change the fact that we have MS and we can run or do some of the things that we would ideally love to do. But mindfulness practices allows you to be able to look at all of those things, make some choices, as well as reduce suffering, which is optional. A lot of times suffering is something that we can have some control over, which is optional, while uncomfortable emotions or physical sensation may be present. So you may still have the pain, you may still have the diagnosis, you may still have other stresses, but this gives you some space away from those things so you don't have so much suffering. So I love this, and this is a goal for mindfulness. Let's look at the goals for relaxation practice, which is what we've been talking about. So the goal of the relaxation practice is to elicit the relaxation response to directly reduce physiological and psychological stress, decrease physical tension. So this can manifest itself in muscle tightness, spasms, spasticity, headaches, and increase a sense of calm in order to promote positive health behaviors and outcome. So these are the goals when we're talking about relaxation practice, in contrast to mindfulness, where we are observing without judgment. All right, so there is multiple ways to activate your relaxation response or your parasympathetic dominance. This can come in a form of repetitive prayer, yoga, Tai Chi, breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation, biofeedback, guided imagery, and other practices, all designed to activate your relaxation response. And I believe some of these topics are being talked about in some of our other experts who are presenting on this conference. So if you're going to a meditation class, or if you're going to a yoga class, understanding that what is happening is that you are actually trying to activate your rest and digest response, so you can get the benefits that comes with those specific parasympathetic dominant states. All right. So we've talked about the relaxation response. Let's look at why we have to stay away from the stress response. So the stress response is the opposite of the relaxation response. So we know that when we have a stress response for a prolonged time, this can lead to accelerated aging at the cellular level. So within your cells, you have the end of your DNA. There's something called telomeres. And we know when you have stress response, actually your telomeres become shorter, and you also have decreased antioxidant capacity. So you need enough antioxidant capacity to protect your cells from damage. And then you also need telomeres that are longer to try to protect your DNA from disease state. So we know that telomeres are a function or a reflection of longevity. So the longer your telomeres are, you live longer. So this is a very important concept to understand, that when you have constant stress, basically it's going to kill you. Okay. So we have a lot of science to give us that information. And again, when you have stress, many of us has been through stress. Stress by itself is not a bad thing. Stress helps us to escape specific states, some dangerous states. But stress that has gone on for so long, or stress coming from things that are not supposed to be super stressful or threatful to our life, this is where we have problems. So when we have stress for so long, you can have increased oxidative stress, which comes about when we are stressing. This means we are not really producing enough oxidative, antioxidative state to protect our cells. And then we can also create specific inflammatory markers and factors that can also affect our overall health when we are stressing a lot. So again, the whole point is that we know that the science behind stress is quite compelling, and we want to avoid stress and counteract that with the relaxation response if possible. All right, so here I'm just going to be talking about a quick study that was done to look at what really happened when we have activation of this relaxation response. So simply put, this was a study that showed that individuals who have relaxation response practices can actually change the genes that they are making in their body. So meaning you can actually program your genes with your mind. And I think I talked a little bit about this in one of my presentations about pain, where you can actually use meditation, some of these practices, to change the specific genes that you're making in your body. So even though people have been doing meditations and all of these practices for a while, we actually did not understand the molecular processes, what is going on at the cellular level within your cells when you do those things. So this is a research that was done at Harvard, looking at people who do meditation, people who have been long-term meditators or short-term meditators. They took these two groups, have them do meditation for about 8 weeks each. And what they found was that both people who've been doing meditation for a long time and those who were new for the first time show significant benefit in terms of specific genes that they were able to create or express within their blood. So when people went through this exercise, the relaxation response practices enhance genes associated with energy metabolism. So that's a great thing. Mitochondria function, this is where your energy stores, insulin secretion, as well as telomere maintenance. And I think I talk about telomere. So we know that when individuals actually meditate, to put this in simple terms, you actually get stronger, you look beautiful, you prevent diabetes, and you actually live longer. On the other hand, the other benefit of this relaxation response, or this meditative practices, whatever you want to call it, also lead to reduction in expressions of genes that are linked to inflammatory and stress-related pathways. So what that means is that the meditation did actually give you some positive things, and it also took away some negative things such as inflammation. All right. So here are some quick benefit of relaxation response: cardiovascular. We can decrease your blood pressure, your heart rate. You can also help with your immune system. There's some benefit with inflammatory conditions. Individuals can also decrease their pain through meditation. You can change the signals that controls your pain through this particular relaxation response. All right, so this is the end of my presentation. I know there's a lot of stuff in here, and I try to kind of move through a little bit faster, but the whole point of this presentation is to make you aware that those practices that we take for granted, or maybe we don't do them because we are always looking for a pill or something else, actually have significant impact on our physiology, including changing the genes that we make. So definitely I'm hoping that this presentation ties in nicely with some of the skill sets you've gained through this wellness challenge. And hopefully you can get back to doing some prayers for help, some meditation for help, some yoga, some Tai Chi, some Kyogan, as well as other practices which can activate the relaxation response we've talked about. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer that for you. You can also email me personally, and I can provide further directions as needed. Take care.